forbid, if you are left with a cube, you can say, no, I deserve more. So another round of applause for him, please. Thank you for the powerful work that you have done and you continue to do through the technology platforms you've created. Our next speaker is Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara. Before I read his profile, let me also say that some people online are really looking forward to this presentation. I have seen comments to that effect. Born in 1967 in Guaranga, Bogoro, Bauchi State, his quest for higher education, public good, and the pursuit for excellence took him to the University of Jos, where he obtained a Bachelor of Laws degree. Dogara then attended the Nigerian Law School in Lagos, after which he was called to the Nigerian bar. Additionally, he holds a master's degree in international commercial law from Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen, Scotland. Dogara's professional career began in the legal field. He practiced law with notable legal firms, gaining a reputation for his legal acumen. He also served as a special assistant to the Minister of State for Transport. Yakubu Dogara ventured into politics in the early 2000s. He was elected into the House of Representatives in 2007 to represent Bogoro Das, Tafawa Balewa Federal Constituency of Bauchi State. He rose to become the Speaker of the House in 2015. He was elected as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, a position he held until 2019. His tenure as Speaker was marked by efforts to reform the legislative process and enhance the efficiency of the House. As Speaker, Dogara was instrumental in passing several key legislations and championing reforms in the legislative process. His leadership style was characterized by a commitment to transparency, accountability, and inclusiveness. He played a significant role in advocating for the independence of the legislature and strengthening democratic institutions in Nigeria. After serving as Speaker, Dogara continued to be an active voice in Nigerian politics. He remained involved in various political and social initiatives, contributing to discussions on national development, governance, and policy reforms. Coming from a farming community, Honorable Dogara developed a strong interest in agriculture since his childhood. Thus, since the 1990s, he ventured into a large-scale agriculture commitment in his home state, Bauchi, FCT, and Nasarawa State. His farms employ over 200 workers directly, while hundreds of others make a living from services offered to the farm. In his plantation, he cultivates banana, mango, lemon, pawpaw, cashew, and many others. He also has ventures in fisheries, poultry, animal husbandry, rice farming, vegetables, using greenhouse technology, among others. His farm also produces special species of rice and flour. Yakubu Dogara is married to Mrs. Gimbaya Yakubu Dogara, and they are blessed with children. His personal life reflects his commitment to his faith and community service, often participating in and supporting various philanthropic activities. Please join me with a standing ovation as we welcome the Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara to the platform, Nigeria.
Oh, okay. My mic is working. Please kindly take your seats. Permit me, first of all, to recognize my leaders. His Excellency, Professor Charles Soludo is here. He's a professor of economics. My leader, or my former leader, because he has abandoned me for quite a long time, Governor Babatunde Rajafashola, the ever-ebullient Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, our leader, our father in the vineyard, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuta, the convener of today's event, the man who has chosen that we should celebrate democracy on Democracy Day, Pastor Poju, and his lovely wife, Toyin. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about democracy and the promise it offers. When I got this invitation, I had to sit down just yesterday to be deliberate about what I want to say here, because I want to run away from excuses that perhaps I said something off the hook. That was why I made a mistake. So I decided to put my thoughts on paper so that everyone will know that I've given it some kind of deliberative attention. So if you indulge me or permit me, I will go ahead and walk you through my thoughts. First of all, I wish to express my profound appreciation to the leadership of Covenant Nation, the organizers of today's event, which marks the 12th, as I understand, edition of the platform, for affording me the opportunity of participating in the capacity of a guest speaker. May I also commend the organizers for their diligence in the choice of the theme, democracy and the free market economy, underpinning the importance of deepening our democracy and its tools on the day we have chosen to celebrate our return to democracy after years of military dictatorship. Introduction and definition of key concepts. Reading or listening through the news these days is easy for one to despair about the state of our democracy relating to its failure to protect our economic and social rights. Of course, that was spoken to by the last speaker. More than 2 decades of unbroken democracy has not resulted in adequate security of lives and properties of our citizens, quality infrastructure, decent employment, access to qualitative education, health, shelter, food, and water, nor afforded the generality of our people adequate standard of living. These are the economic and social rights. They enable people to live with dignity and participate fully in society. I believe these are the factors that necessitated the choice of today's theme, democracy and the free market economy, which is apt in the sense that when citizens lack access to their economic and social rights, they cannot fully participate in civic life and therefore cannot do the work of democracy. But we must thank God for the freedom, at least, not to take our democracy for granted, and to be able to engage, as we're doing today, in open conversation about the near total absence of these rights that empower citizens of democracy, utilizing the freedom democracy offers to build the kind of society that better meets their needs and aspirations. Without sounding very academic, it is obvious that my speech will not be complete without understanding some basic concepts relevant to today's theme. Talking about democracy, what therefore is democracy, and how has it evolved over the years? It seems from available evidence that there are no settled definitions of democracy. Historically, democracy comes from the Greek word demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning rule. It is thus a system of government in which the people rule. Democracy also has roots in the Magna Carta, the Great Charter of 1215. That was the first document to challenge the authority of the English king. subjecting him to the rule of law and protecting his people from feudal abuse. In modern era, perhaps the most popular definition of democracy is credited to Abraham Lincoln, the former president of the United States, in his Gettysburg Address, where he described democracy as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It was also Winston Churchill, the former British Prime Minister, who remarked that democracy is the worst form of government, except all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. In our context, the Britannia online description of democracy, to my mind, is perhaps a good foundation of understanding the different strands of democracy. Thus, it provides that the term has three basic senses in contemporary usage. It refers, number one, a form of government in which the right to make political decisions is exercised directly by the whole body of citizens acting under procedures of majority rule, usually known as direct democracy. Two, it's a form of government in which the citizens exercise the same right, not in person, but through representatives chosen by and responsible to them, known as representative democracy. Number three is a form of government, usually a representative democracy, in which powers of the majority are exercised within a framework of constitutional restraints designed to guarantee all citizens the enjoyment of certain individual or collective rights, such as freedom of speech, religion, known to all of us as liberal or constitutional democracy. In the case of Nigeria, it won't be out of place to proceed that ours is a constitutional democracy. That Nigeria is a democracy is even expressly stated in the Constitution itself. In this section 14, subsection 1 of the Constitution provides that the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice. Now, free market economy. What does it mean? Professor of economics is here. I wish he had spoken before me. A free market is said to be a type of economic system that is controlled by the market forces of supply and demand, as opposed to a regulated, the one regulated by government controls. Its opposite on the spectrum is the command economy, where a central government agency plans the factors of production and use of resources and set prices. In a purely free market, buyers and sellers arrive at prices based only on supply and demand. As such, buyers and sellers compete with one another among each other to pay the lowest price, that is for buyers, or to receive the highest price, that is for sellers. Our free markets can motivate individuals acting in their own self-interest to produce what is socially and societally necessary, was what Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, referred to as the invisible hand in his famous work, The Wealth of Nations. In a free market, undertakings, by undertakings I mean organizations doing business, can be even a one-man business. Undertakings are owned by private individuals who are free to trade contracts with each other without any let or hindrance. Undertakings sell goods and services at the highest price consumers are willing to pay, while workers earn the highest wages companies are willing to pay for their services. Free market economy is characterized by private ownership of resources, thriving financial markets, and most importantly, the freedom to participate. But in reality, the idea of a purely free market is utopian. No country on earth runs a purely free market. Most countries' economies contain elements of both free market and command economies, some sort of combination of markets and regulation, with different countries falling at different places on the spectrum. According to the Heritage Foundation's 2022 Index of Economic Freedom, Singapore's economy is considered the freest, followed by Switzerland and Ireland. The United States, with its much touted democracy and openness, ranks just 25th on the list, and understandably with Venezuela and North Korea ranked last in terms of economic freedom. Now the promise of democracy. It is said that the promise of democracy is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. According to Thomas Jefferson, these are God-given rights. Therefore, it is not enough to be alive and free in a democracy. One must also be engaged in the pursuit of happiness in order to be said to enjoy the promise of democracy. The 2022 Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index survey for Nigeria reveals that 63% of persons living in Nigeria, approximately 133 million people, are multi-dimensionally poor. That being the case, we can say without the fear of any contradiction that our democracy is not working for majority of our citizens. This is because although they are alive and free, they lack the means with which to pursue happiness. Poverty is a greater threat to democracy than weak institutions that the speaker before me has spoken about, simply because it deprives poor citizens not only of their political voice, but prevents them from holding their governments accountable, thereby shattering public trust in the emerging institutions of democracy. The challenge before us now is how to utilize our democratic rights to build an all-inclusive economy that empowers an overwhelming majority of our people to unleash their full potentials. So if that were to work, we must never stop putting pressure on government to set clear targets and monitor progress when it comes to addressing the causes of poverty, because poverty, though experienced by individuals, is created by powerless systems that fail to protect citizens and their rights to a decent standard of living. When the right systems are in place, recent experience has shown that a nation can pull hundreds of millions of its citizens out of poverty. After 40 years of policy implementations and effective governance, China has successfully lifted 770 million of its citizens out of poverty. And India too has revealed that nearly 250 million people have been lifted out of multi-dimensional poverty. With purposeful leadership in Nigeria, I dare say that we can achieve that. We can make our democracy work. Unfortunately for us, Nigeria is in a demographic transition with a major problem, which is our population curve has far outpaced the hope and opportunity curve, leaving us with no option than to expand our economic space if we must save our democracy. Unfortunately, the youth bulge has turned out not a blessing, as it is only producing disaffected rebels instead of productive laborers. There is no Nigerian out there that doesn't want change, but the problems are so consuming and absorbing that we fail to articulate what changes we need to adopt. Most times, we fail to realize that the heart is more important than the brain. While people know what they are against, the majority don't know what they are for. So change to me, therefore, is not about what you are prepared to abandon. It is about what you are prepared to embrace. I've realized that apportioning blame is not a solution anywhere. In as much as I don't want you to trust me to land the plane when it comes to proffering economic solutions, as I have seen countless first-class economists in CBN and other financial institutions in Nigeria doing so much over the years, but not getting anything done. It is like they have always sailed on a clear boat. I won't even bother talking about how we got here, because that is a discussion that saturates the media space. But permit me to bore you with what I consider commonsensical solutions to some of our nagging economic challenges. And I say this from my heart. I think the most critical challenge the economy is faced with now is the crisis of foreign exchange, forex or FX, as they call it. This is by far the major malaise afflicting our economy at the moment. In June 2023, the CBN undertook a critical policy decision to implement a new foreign exchange policy that provides for a unified and free-floating exchange rate. This means that the exchange rate of the local currency to the USD and indeed to all other currencies will henceforth be based on freely priced transactions between willing buyers and willing sellers. Since then, the Naira has depreciated against the USD in both the official and parallel markets. This has seen the value of the Naira cascading to a near-death downward spiral in the parallel market, where it has lost more than 100% of its value. Governments all over the world are tasked with strengthening the value of their national currencies for obvious reasons, including but not limited to the following. One, strong currencies increases the purchasing power of citizens and enterprises in the country. Two, the stronger a currency, the more likely the surge in investors' confidence, because foreign investors make rational choices and are more inclined to invest in countries with strong currencies, as they stand to gain higher returns on their investments when converted back to their home currencies. A strong currency is frequently associated with stability and prosperity. In other words, it determines the health of a nation's economy. As we can see, a strong currency creates humongous surface level and nuance advantages for citizens. So many reasons have been adduced by pundits to be responsible for FX rate instability in Nigeria, which to my mind are just a complete technical application of economic theories that do not capture the essence of the reality of the situation on the ground. I agree with the slogan that we must transform to thrive by transitioning from a consuming economy to a producing one. That is rational, but it is not the cause of our FX volatility. I believe the Naira is grossly undervalued. I don't know what the professor thinks about that, but I sincerely believe that the Naira, as it stands today, is grossly undervalued. This is because the most productive nations are not necessarily the nations with the strongest currencies. China is a perfect example. Take a look at the West African CFA franc countries. What are they producing and exporting relative to Nigeria? Why does CFA seem immune from the volatility our Naira suffers? What can we find in economic theory that justifies the strength of the CFA against the Naira? What was Nigeria producing in General Abacha's days, or Presidents OBJ and Jonathan days, when Naira was a bit stronger and stable, that we are not producing now? I think the only inflection point we witnessed was due to the advent of the BVN, which crippled the ability of corrupt officials and other shady characters to keep their loot in anonymous bank accounts. Almost all ill-gotten money is stashing USD in private vaults as the Naira is too bulky to warehouse. The initial withdrawal of such funds from the banking system was what triggered the first wave of the hyper demand for USD. Therefore, I'm of the firm belief that our insatiable appetite for USD is what is killing the Naira. Believe it or not, nearly all big ticket deals and transactions, both legitimate and shady, are closed in USD in Nigeria. Just find out, there's no hefty bribe that is not paid for in USD. Some schools in Nigeria charge fees in foreign currencies, and even our most valued export is paid for in USD. So to me, wittingly or unwittingly, the USD is our currency of choice. And as long as we don't kill our appetite for USD, the demand for USD will always outstrip its supplies. Economist theories can say anything. I don't believe it because it has never worked in our own case. The truth is that as we speak, Nigerians have lost faith in the Naira, honestly speaking, as a store of value. And that faith cannot be restored anytime soon. Even the average Nigerian investor is now thinking of how to invest in ventures that will bring in USD returns. PMB's currency swap with China didn't work out for obvious reasons. The euro, a very stable currency, has also been around for many years, but is still unable to replace the USD. It is better to tell ourselves the home truth. The USD is not going away anytime soon. The challenge before the government is how to unlock and make the USD locked up in private vaults in Nigeria begin to chase the Naira. That, to me, is the commonsensical solution. I believe we have enough dollars in this country that we can unlock to make our economy work and to crash the FS rate. I believe so. So to achieve this by far the most important aspect of my presentation. They may be controversial, but honestly, I don't care. To achieve this, the government must demand that all Nigerian exports, including crude oil exports, be paid for in Naira. Just as we don't pay for any imports into Nigeria from any country in Naira, it's not too much to demand that. 2, government should raise loans from Nigerians with large FX holdings by applying moral suasions. As we all know, Nigerians at home and abroad are said to hold substantial amount of FX in domestic and foreign domiciliary accounts, which are currently idle. For Nigeria to reach some understanding with holders of these funds, 2 conditions must be made. Propose that the government should be able to build trust and engender confidence in the economy, and the holders of the funds are sufficiently incentivized to act. The incentives will have to be agreed upon mutually. For example, no one is compelled to disclose the source of their FX, and B, government provides sovereign guarantees to repay on agreed terms. Now, government should improve inward remittances of funds by Nigerians in the diaspora. Diaspora funds are excellent and reliable source of funding development in several developing and emerging market economies. There are said to be between 5 and 15 million Nigerians in the diaspora with remittances in excess of 20 billion USD. This is more than 80% of our federal government's budget. However, these funds do not go through the proper channels, and the CBN is unable to reap the benefits of foreign currency transfers. Again, Nigeria must make an attractive value proposition to its citizens abroad to engender their confidence and attract remittances through proper channels. Now this is the controversial one. And I say government through credible intelligence generated by our security agencies ought or should know those individuals in Nigeria who have taken advantage of the system and they have idle USDs stashed in their private vaults. Such individuals should be offered the incentives I talked about in paragraph 2 above, and should they fail to respond, it is my considered opinion that Mr. President should invoke and apply the MBS solution. We know what MBS solution is. Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. No one who has taken advantage of the system should have the liberty to store in excess what his or her country desperately needs in order to lift millions of its people out of multi-dimensional poverty. Mr. President must be told that nothing done to afflict the comfortable in order to comfort the afflicted and heal our economy qualifies as a vice. Likewise, comforting those who have put our economy on a chokehold by taking unfair advantage of the system is not virtue. If the current downward spiral of the Naira is not arrested, I fear we may get to a point where we will have to ditch the Naira altogether. And Nigerians at that point won't mind and bother where their CBN headquarters is in London, Washington, Brussels, or Beijing, provided their currency is very strong. May God forbid that. After fixing the FX conundrum, the next thing is to formalize our informal sector. It's called broadening the tax nets. We all know how that will impact government revenue and stimulate economic growth if the process are well invested. Government will also create and deploy a robust ecosystem of micro, small, and medium enterprises to create millions of jobs, fuel high economic growth, build our foreign reserves, and strengthen our currency. I suggest the country should be subdivided into strategic economic zones according to the natural economic endowment of each part of the country. The North should be an agro-allied zone to concentrate on massive commercial farming involving sustainable transformation from rain-fed to irrigated agriculture and manufacturing and supplies of agricultural plants and machinery, food processing, innovation, and entrepreneurship. The Southeast to concentrate on industrial activities such as currently exist in Aba and Nnewi, which that part of the country is well known for. Car manufacturing, shoes, clothing, machine tool industries, and other manufacturing activities. The South-South and Delta regions, petrochemical zone, oil and gas-related industrial activities. The Southwest, heavy industries, shipping, high-tech, AI, cocoa, commerce, etc. Now, technology and innovation incubation centers, hubs, and accelerators should be established or boosted all across the country, congruent to the strategic endowment of each part of the country. This would enable more specialized MSMEs to sprout and thrive. Government should provide or boost startup grants for promising inventions, innovation, as is currently being done in the US and other countries. Promising inventions then would present opportunities for private investors, both foreign and domestic, to invest and scale this up into profitable ventures. In order to ignite, energize the spirit of creativity and entrepreneurship, especially among the youth, the government should establish a prestigious annual Invention and Innovation Award to be presented by the President every June 12. If this is agreed upon, a Democracy Day would no longer be a day in which we simply mark the return to civil rule, but a day to celebrate innovation and progress. Focus on export manufacturing. Our development policy should mimic the already tried and tested East Asian export-driven model. used by Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore, and later copied with phenomenal success by China. Nigeria has an abundance of cheap labor right now, which it could use to produce and manufacture labor-intensive exportable goods and services, those providing employment to teeming unemployed youth. The MSME's ecosystem will thrive on this as well. Just as China and India did, foreign companies who wish to market high-volume consumables in Nigeria, including those who hitherto are used to manufacturing and dumping large volumes of their products into our country, should be asked to manufacture those products right here in Nigeria by way of foreign direct investment. This will give employment to a large number of unemployed youths, graduates. Manufacturing within the country will no doubt upgrade our local managerial skills, in addition to enabling technology transfer into our country. This strategy is what enabled China and other East Asian economies, and also India, to acquire technological and managerial skills, making them today globally competitive. This strategy too would invariably lead to the growth of a small and medium scale enterprises ecosystem. Government policy in the area of education should emphasize the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths education. It is this strategy which has seen China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Singapore leading the world and about to overtake the United States in the area of high-tech and AI. In the area of infrastructure, a whole lot needs to be done. The most obvious areas of needs, what we can call mission-critical areas, roads. We all know that. We should build roads that last a minimum of 10 years, connecting key cities and strategic regional, industrial, and economic zones. Same with railroads. Concession these railways. Concession these out to qualified foreign and domestic companies. Dredging our inland waterways. Just think of the new towns, cities, holiday resorts, industrial parks, and tourism activities that this will enable to emerge among those waterways, along those waterways corridor. Power, of course, without power, our efforts to industrialize will continue to be a pipe dream. I'm happy the former Minister of Power is here, so he can address that. In closing, permit me to counsel that we must learn to walk circumspectly in the midst of the noise in Nigeria. As all healthy democracies are noisy, what is happening in Nigeria is therefore not unusual, because that must be the case when the culture of democracy takes root. The free press, democratic election, parliamentary debates, civil society activities, labor unions, conflict, compromise, consensus are all entrenched parts of a vibrant democratic culture. We must understand the responsibility of freedom, which means that we are free not to be irresponsible as citizens of democracy. No democracy anywhere has ever licensed its citizens to be their worst selves. Only fascism does that. We must therefore deploy our democratic rights to build rather than to destroy. For progress to be made, we must creatively create a reward system that works only for citizens who are bakers, not those that are hunters. By that I mean those rent seekers, masquerading as businessmen and women who now promiscuously litter our economic space. If Nigeria keeps holding on to what is normal, it will keep letting go of what is possible. We must never lose sight of the fact that scientists built the Titanic while amateurs built the Earth. But the Titanic couldn't survive a collision with an iceberg, while the Ark defied the global floods. The fight to rebuild our faltering economy is our collective fight. We must lead the way. The government must lead the way by being very aggressive in the pursuit, design, and implementation of appropriate policies that will give birth to a robust ecosystem of MSMEs all over the country. Finally, we must learn as Nigerians to resist the temptation to define our happiness as the other group's unhappiness. And we must tame our misdirected rage as government that we wrongly believe is big enough to solve all our problems, but is unable to do so. The sooner we accept the fact that our government is limited, and therefore limited in what it can do for us as individual citizens, the better for us. As difficult a message to sell, but that is the raw truth. Thank you for listening. May God bless you, and may God bless our country, Nigeria.